Gentlemen, this is one of the most amazing archaeological discoveries in history related to the Bible. This is the Merneptah Stele. There was a pharaoh in Egypt by the name of Merneptah. He came right after Ramses II. And this stela, this victory statement, comes from 1208 BC. So this thing is over 3,200 years old. And if you look down here, you can see how it's kind of worn more black because people were actually touching the inscription that mentioned that Israel as a nation had been laid waste by Pharaoh Merneptah in 1208 BC. Well, how could that be if the Exodus took place in the 1200s like many people say? The much more consistent date for the Exodus, according to the Bible and archaeology, is the Exodus took place in the 1400s BC, particularly according to the Bible, 1446 BC. That would have given the Israelites enough time to get into the land and become a nation, so later Merneptah could brag that he had beaten them. This is amazing. It's 3,200 years old, and it's got Israel on it.
First thing I'm going to say is I don't like Dan McClellan because he got to this video before I got a chance to get to this video. So I'm going to vaguely talk about some of the things he talked about, but go more into detail of the other things that I want to talk about that he didn't speak on too much. So yes, Dan McClellan did a great video where he showed that this has absolutely nothing to do with the Exodus. It does not prove the Exodus, and it certainly is not something that proves the Bible is correct. It proves that the Bible has a group of people that are mentioned in history. That's it. It doesn't prove that the Red Sea split, that frogs and boils and hail and all that stuff happened. The Exodus story doesn't prove any of that. If anything, the Merneptah Stele proves that Christians will go at every length they possibly can to try to force history to fit. Because one, Dan talked about the fact that the Merneptah Stele does not say that Israel was a nation. It says Israel was a people. And everyone else that Pharaoh Merneptah conquered, there is the symbol that represents a nation. It looks like a crown with a flag thing sticking out of it. But for the Israelite, it just had two people with three little lines up under it, which represents a people group, not a nation. So Israel was not a nation that Merneptah conquered, but just a nomadic people group that he laid waste to. And he says that he laid waste to them in 1208. And I want you to keep that date in mind, 1208, when they were laid waste to. Now, when you look at the Exodus story and you try to make it fit into this thought process, you know that it could not have been Merneptah who was the Pharaoh during the time frame of the Exodus. It's an impossibility because right after that, you have the Bronze Age collapse, and we're going to get back into that one. But it had to have happened beforehand. So what biblical archaeologists try to do, or apologists, I should say, because they don't deserve the title of archaeologists, is that they look at the time frame when Solomon built the temple. And in the Bible, it says that the temple was built 480 years after the Exodus story supposedly happened. So this is why they have their 1446. But the problem with 1446 is that was the time frame of Pharaoh Thutmose II. So why is Pharaoh Thutmose II, why he can't be the Pharaoh that's mentioned in the Bible? Well, for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons says that the Hebrew people, the Israelites, were enslaved during the time frame of the building of Pi-Ramses. Well, Pi-Ramses was not built in the 1400s. It didn't exist. Pi-Ramses was built in the 1200s, the early 1200s, in around like 1289 during the time frame of Ramses II. So that is when Pi-Ramses was being built. So therefore, Thutmose II could not have been that Pharaoh because the time frame just don't match up. Plus also, from the time frame of Thutmose II into Ramses II into Merneptah, the problem that you're going to have in this instance is that Egypt controlled the entire Levant during that entire time frame. Egypt didn't lose control of the Levant until around 1200 BCE, when they lost to the Phoenicians and the Bronze Age collapse happened, most likely because of a drought that struck the Mediterranean area. So therefore, Egypt controlled the Levant. There was no opportunity for Joshua to have conquered Jericho and conquered Ai and all these other places during the 1400s BCE, because those lands were controlled by Egypt during that time frame. So it would invalidate the Exodus story as well as the entire book of Joshua and all the other kingdom shit that supposedly would have happened in that 200 plus year time frame that they supposedly would have been doing Exodus and Joshua. It could not have happened. It would not have happened. So Merneptah can't be the, not Merneptah, Thutmose II couldn't be the Pharaoh. It could not have happened in the 1400s, because if there was a time frame that they gathered themselves to become a nation, as this man was saying, then that nation would have been firmly established by the time frame of Merneptah, and they would have been given the ideogram or the hieroglyphics, the meta nature of a little castle with a flag over it, and not just be a nomadic people, a people symbol, which means they weren't a nation. So therefore, this information is just completely false. It does not validate them as being a nation or people, or that the Exodus story literally happened. It didn't. It's just that by the time you get to 1208 and the sea people have are fighting the Egyptians, and the Canaanite people are revolting, the Canaanite hillside people, who then become the Israelites, had already separated themselves and calling themselves Israelites. They would have known about these people. And so Merneptah came in and said, oh, y'all want to be different? I got different for you. And in his conquering, he whooped that booty, right? So they lost. And there is nowhere in your Bible where it talks about Egypt coming back. So he's saying that they had that 200-year time frame to become a nation. Where does your Bible say that after Joshua and all that, Egypt came back and reconquered the Israelites and made them subservient to them as a puppet state? No. Israel had its own little kingdom, maybe for about 200 to 400 years before the Assyrians came and conquered them. There's no Egypt reconquering after the Bronze Age collapse in the early 12th century. So no, all that information is falsified. It does not prove the Bible. If anything, it shows that the Bible is historically and archaeologically inaccurate, and that Christians and Bible believers will go at lengths in order to try to convince themselves and convince other people that their book is true because a place exists. New York exists. Spider-Man don't. LA exists. Wonder Man don't. Because the new Wonder Man's coming out. Wonder Man don't. England exists. Captain Britain don't. Canada exists. Wolverine does not exist. Deadpool does not exist. You see what I'm saying? Just because it names a place doesn't mean that it exists. There are many things that are named historically, that are historical places, but the naming of a historical place does not validate the activities to which you claim happened. But what do you guys think? Always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.